Hello. Welcome to Newcastle. Thank you so much for joining us. We're delighted that so many people could join us for this ArcInTex network symposium. So we're hosted here by the Hub for Biotechnology in the Built Environment, and we're really pleased that so many people have managed to come in person. And hopefully this event can be about presentations, but it can also be about networking and making new connections for the future. We've also got quite a large online audience, which I think Peter is just checking that they're with us, so hopefully they're with us. They're joining us through RECAP, which is the university system, which enables you to join us, which is great, but unfortunately they won't be able to participate in discussions, so they're going to be very much hosted in the room here. So we've got a 3-day schedule, which is packed with a range of activities, and I hope most of you can join us for all of them. We've got the single track presentations, which will be here. We also have the Artifact and Design Showcase, which is set up in the OHM, and we'll talk about going to the OHM in a bit. And then on Friday, we've got our PhD forum, where hopefully it's a nice, relaxed, informal environment to discuss the work. So before I start and run through the schedule, I just wanted to thank a few people who've made this event happen. Firstly, thanks to ArcInTex. Thank you very much for allowing us to host this network event. It's a real honour to be able to bring ArcInTex back to in-person, which is great. Secondly, thanks very much to the Hub for Biotechnology in the Built Environment, and in particular our colleagues in Living Construction who have supported this event very generously. And also to the colleagues from the Hub for Biotechnology in the Built Environment, many of whom are in the audience today, so thank you very much for participating in the event. Two people that I really do need to thank in particular are Peter, down at the front here, who any of the speakers will have met, and also Romy, who've really just worked tirelessly to make this event happen. So thank you very much to you too. We've had an extended team, Paula, who is also here, Paula, at the back. Thank you so much. She's one of the conference chairs, did a lot of work early on. We've had Monica and Emily also, who've been incredibly generous and given us their time. So thank you. So how did this conference come about? We established the Living Textiles Research Group within the Hub for Biotechnology in the Built Environment last year. And I joined Newcastle in 2020. And what became immediately apparent was that textiles, in the context of biotechnology in the built environment, offered a real opportunity to cross between disciplines, between scales, between methodologies, and between modes of thinking. And really to think about bringing together the tacit knowledge from kind of a craft and a making community with biotechnology and engineering and science. What we've been able to do is kind of enable multidisciplinary and collaborative projects with experts from across HBBE, which is obviously this huge science, technology, engineering and design community. So we were really delighted when we were asked to host ArcInTex, because we really felt this was an excellent forum to share some of the ideas that we've been developing. And we're just really pleased that we've got 3 days to think about these multi-species, multi-scale interactions between architecture and textiles, and really what that could mean for the future of manufacturing and construction. So, the other key thing to remember while you're here is 2 things on this slide. Firstly, we have the programme and the speaker abstracts, which are accessible through these QR codes. Do we have the QR codes? Yes. We also have the QR codes printed, which is fantastic. Well done. So hopefully you can access those. We've also got our social media links, and please do share this event and include us when you are doing that. So that's the QR codes. Can I flick on? Yeah. And they're available afterwards if you've missed them now. So I just wanted to really quickly run through the schedule, just so that you know what to expect and you know where to be over the next few days. So we've got introductions now, and then we have our opening provocation by Professor Carol Collette, which will be online. So that's all in here. And as I say, that will be live in here and then also streamed on the RECAP system. And the one thing that I do need to stress is because of the recap system, we just need to make sure we're on time. So that's a note to speakers. Let's make sure we don't overrun in our sessions. Note to self is what that is really. We come straight back in for session 1, which is thinking about responsive biotextile hybrids. So thinking about really how textiles can be central to a lot of different modes of hybrid making. And we've got a nice range of presentations in that first session, which will be chaired by Delia. And then we have our lunch break. Again, the lunch will be in the lobby here, so that should be ready, set up for us as soon as the session ends. After lunch, we come back for engineering biology for future textiles, which is really looking a little bit more at fibre engineering and bringing in synthetic biology, bringing in engineering biology perspectives, kind of very much for textiles. So we've got some really interesting talks coming up in that session that will be in here as well. So after that, we have a break, and then we have the first keynote event of the symposium. And that, we're really excited about that. We've got Tom Ellis coming from Imperial. We've got Amy Congdon, who we think is already here. She is already here. And Martyn from the Hub for Biotechnology in the Built Environment. So that's going to be a really good discussion. So after the keynote, we have our first transition, and we'll be moving from here to the Ohm, which is across Newcastle. And what we'll do is we'll meet in the lobby together, and then we'll just walk together. It's about a 15-minute walk, I guess. And then we've got a really nice showcase event in the Ohm to open the Artifacts and Design showcase with a drinks reception. So hopefully you can all join us for that. And that'll be from 5 o'clock till 7 o'clock this evening. So tomorrow begins with the keynote, and that will be back in here. So we're going to start nice and early. There'll be coffee available from 9 o'clock. And then we have our keynote in here, which is with Phil Ayres, who's already joined us, which is fantastic. Owen from the Farrell Centre, and chaired by myself. So after that session, we have 2 more single-track sessions. Firstly, textiles as a biofabrication strategy, and I think this in particular is going to look at some of the ways of making with textiles in composite forms. So I think that's going to be a great session, followed by lunch, which again will be in the lobby, and then the final session in the afternoon, which is thinking about kind of multi-species collaboration. So how can we use textiles within this context of multiple species interactions? We have evening events on as well. We're back in the Ohm for a showcase discussion, and what we really hope you can join us for that session on Thursday, because what we've asked the exhibitors to do is actually prepare very short presentations, so we can just have a quick talk around all of the work that's on exhibition there. So that'd be great. And then followed by a meetup in Newcastle at the Town Wall Pub from 6:30. So if you can join us for that, that'd be brilliant. So finally, on Friday, we've got 2 different events in a slightly different format. There's the opportunity to have a look around the facilities we've got in the Hub for Biotechnology in the Built Environment, and that's going to start early. So that's going to be a 9 o'clock meet, which will be in the Devonshire building, which is near the Ohm, where we'll go to. And Romy is just highlighting that we have a sign-up sheet. It'd be really good to know how many people would like to come on a tour with us, just so that we can arrange some tour guides. So yeah, if you're interested in a tour on Friday at 9 o'clock, if you'd like to sign up, we'll put it on the reception. Yeah. Fantastic. And then finally, we have our PhD forum, which is going to be a really nice event. We've got PhD candidates and some early career researchers presenting kind of more informal, in a more informal format with a panel of academics. So I think that's going to be a really nice way to end the 3 days. So that's a rush through the schedule. I apologise, it's very fast, but I'm trying to keep to time, keep to my own rules. And so I'd now like to hand over to Delia Dumitrescu, who's Professor and Vice Chair of Artistic Research and Education Board at the Swedish School of Textiles, to introduce you to the ArcInTex network.
Hello. Hello, everybody. I would like to give you a short introduction, maybe I should, to the ArcInTex network. which is coordinated by my colleague Martyn, who is unfortunately now in Borås. She is not with us here, and myself from the Swedish School of Textiles, University of Borås. ArcInTex network was established in 2012 at the Swedish School of Textiles. So it's celebrating today 10 years of existence. The idea of ArcInTex as a research program has started from the paradigm of smart textiles as new responsive materials for architectural design, intersecting the field of textile design, computational design, interaction design, and architecture. The network is a result of a conference, Ambience 11, organized by the University of Borås, having this as a central topic for the research. The conference also gathered top international researchers in this topic, and it was a wish to establish further collaborations in the field that were more than just research dissemination in a conference. So it was the idea to support them to coordinate other events in terms of like education, joint projects, and joint PhD research. So the aim was to bring people together to explore design perspectives on living with a focus on emergent materiality. That was the core of ArcInTex. And we have network meetings that are organized twice a year, as I said before, to connect people in research, to create joint applications for research funding, and also to encourage collaborations for training for graduate education and to form new exchange programs at the graduate level, but also to disseminate knowledge on research and education through conferences, exhibitions, and workshops. And I also want to give you an example of one of the results that are emerging from this network activities. In 2015, 6 universities in the network joined for a research application for early stage research, to support early stage researchers in the Marie Curie grant application. And we were very lucky to get this grant. So 15 PhD students have graduated from this, having this as research program. You will also meet some of them presenting today. And outside these 15 PhD students, there are other PhD students and master students that participated to the conferences, and they finished and they were very active in presenting their work in exhibitions and also participating in workshops, and PhD consortium that also graduated from the network. So the network has quite a broad perspective. At the moment, there are 40 members, maybe actually more than 40, and if you are interested to join, please let us know, because we are very open to new members. However, it's also very important that you are aware that you have to share your environments, as we have this experience now in Newcastle. So far, we also had 18 network meetings that were organized in these 10 years of activity. And I think it was very interesting for all of us to meet all these like new researchers, but also to see 18 different environments around Europe and also outside Europe, to see how they organize research, how they organize PhD education, and how they deal with the topic of textiles and architecture and new materials. So yeah, that is kind of what I wanted to say about ArcInTex, and don't hesitate to contact me if you have any questions.
And now I'm delighted to introduce Professor Martyn Dade-Robertson, who is co-director of the Hub for Biotechnology in the Built Environment.
Does this work? Yeah, that works. Great. Well, thank you, and welcome to Newcastle University. For those of, well, quite a few of you know this place pretty well, so I'm not talking to you. But for the rest of you who don't know this place very well, welcome to Newcastle University. This is actually our newest bit of the campus. We're going to go and see the older bit of the campus this evening, when we finish these sessions. But we're in almost a brand new building. This has only been in place for a year, a couple of years maybe, which is why the internet doesn't work very well in this building, it seems. So please enjoy the facilities and welcome. This is actually the computing science school normally, but is also where we host events. And the reason we're here and not over in the main campus is because we had anticipated maybe like 20, we thought maybe 30. My God, there might be 40 people. There are a lot more of you than that. I think there are 80, maybe 100 sign-ups at this point here, not to mention people online. That shows the success of this event, and we thank you for coming today. My name is Martyn Dade-Robertson. I'm Professor of Emerging Technology, and in this context, I'm the co-director of the Hub for Biotechnology in the Built Environment. So I'm just going to introduce you briefly to what that is. So we were incredibly lucky 4 years ago now to receive a large grant from Research England, and Research England are actually the sponsors of this event as well, vicariously via us, to create a new research centre across 2 institutions, Newcastle University, where you are now, but also Northumbria University, and we have many representations for both institutions. Very unusual for 2 neighbouring institutions of our sort to not be in competition with each other, but to put something together. And we envisaged a world that we described as being a discipline of creating built environments that are life-sustaining and sustained by life. And we proposed in the original application that we would build a research centre around the best in biotechnology, the best in engineering, and the best in design to build these new environments across, initially 3 and now 4 themes: building metabolisms, the treatment and reuse of building waste and building services. You'll see some of this at the OHM. Living construction, the construction of the built environment, moving from a situation where we manufacture our materials to a situation where we grow our materials and even perhaps grow whole buildings. Microbial environments, the interaction between us and the microbiome and health, our health, something that became very evident to us in the last couple of years, much more so, much more present than even when we put the grant together. And the responsible interactions, which was really an effort to pull those things together around the development of designs, prototypes that had built environment imminence. We're spread across the 2 sites through multiple different facilities that we've managed to build through the grant. So you can see here that I won't go into every one of the facilities, and for those of you who want to sign up for the thing on Friday, just to repeat that, you'll get to see some of these facilities. Most of you will also get to see the OHM, which is our centerpiece. But each of the facilities is designed around a different scale. We described it as being a different scale of design, from nano, where we do molecular microbiology, right the way through to these different scale-up steps, to lab bench scale, to building component scale. We have a brand new workshop with state-of-the-art fabrication facilities. And then to our centerpiece, the OHM, which is where you will go this afternoon. I don't need to give much more than that. You'll get to see it, but it's an extraordinary and unique facility right in the heart of the university campus, and we're very, very proud of it. We have an extended network, and it's really important that the hub is not a research center. So we are quite explicit in our naming of the hub as not being a research center, because we also recognize that this research is going on in lots of different places. There are huge strengths internationally in elements of this, but what we wanted to do is to bring all of that expertise into one place. We do it partly by hiring, so we started off as 6 people. We then got to, I think with the last count, we were in the mid-60s in the hub, so it's a huge endeavor. We tried to steal as much talent as we could, but we recognize that a lot of the talent is still out in the world, and we can't hire everybody, so we have to bring people together, and this is an example of how we're trying to do that. We have a large and extensive network, both in academic terms, but also increasingly commercial and industrial as well. Now, I described to you the research themes before. Those were the research themes that we applied for the grant with. But actually, the most interesting things happening in the hub are the emergent themes, the things that are coming about, not through anything that we wrote in the original grant application, but by bringing these people together and by providing them resources, the really interesting core questions. And I wanted to highlight a couple of them here that have led to symposia and events rather like this one. We have an interest now in space travel and going off and using biotechnology to help colonize other planets, for example, which is a fascinating new dimension and has taken on a life of its own. Mycology for Architecture, where one of our PhD students, Dylan, without really any funding from us to start with, developed this network and an online platform for people to share their experiences of growing mushroom roots. And I think many of you will know what that is, but if you don't, you can talk to us afterwards. And then, most importantly for this event, the Living Textiles Group. So we had no sense at the beginning that textiles were going to be important to the development of the hub. Then we hired Jane. She persuaded me to buy a very expensive knitting machine. And over time, the role of textiles and what we do has grown not only as a way of thinking about the fabrication of materials, but actually across all of the themes. And you're going to see research projects from us and indeed from others that reflect all of the different themes within the HBBE. And just some, I guess, some parting thoughts to go with and perhaps to give some kind of structure to some of the presentations that you see. What I've learned from the Living Textiles Group and the work that they've done and the prototypes that they've developed and the thinking that they're developing over the last couple of years have been that there is a natural way of thinking through textiles that involves multidimensional, multidimensional thinking in some ways, but multi-scale thinking. So there is an obvious relationship between biology, where we have to think of everything from the gene right the way through to ecosystem scale, to thinking about textile technologies, where you're thinking about for example, the technology of an individual yarn, right up to complex composite materials that are created when you put those materials together in different ways. And so that way of thinking informs quite a lot of the projects that we do that might not immediately or obviously be textile related, although many of them are, but have a role to play there as well. The other thing that we've started to understand is that textiles are incredibly versatile as an interaction interface with biology. And they do that through performing multiple functions, including acting as the structure onto which and through which we can grow things. They can act as the mold through which we contain growth or delineate growth to certain forms and shapes. And you're going to see some amazing examples of that in the OHM. They can be a vascular system in that they can provide the transportation for water and nutrient for biology, but they can also be its food source. So the textiles themselves can end up being part of the metabolism of the organisms that use them. And often, and this is where it gets really exciting, they can do all of those things simultaneously. So this leads us to very complex ways of thinking about the interaction between human-made materials and biological systems. And this is really exciting. The other thing that I've learned, and actually I gave a presentation to the ArcInTex group right at the beginning, I was just reminded, is that we've started to recognize now that many, and indeed I might have even said most, if I didn't get into trouble with my biology colleagues, biological materials are textiles. Fundamentally, we talk about polymer structures that end up getting woven or knitted or whatever together to make tissues, and those tissues are then folded and become vital organs, or in microbial systems, biofilms. These are a form of textiles. So actually, the microbes or the microorganisms that we're using are already doing textile design, and we constantly see this whenever we look down a microscope, whenever we develop a new material, that we see these textile-like qualities. And so this is really fundamental now in our thinking, and we're going to see a lot of examples of that over the next couple of weeks. So, to conclude, I think I'm on time. It's not bad. Thank you. A couple of thank yous I'd like to give out. Thank you guys for coming along, right? So this is, as I've intimated, is already a far larger scale event than we thought. It gives me great pleasure to see this number of people, because when we got the hub, we thought, this might be a bit of a niche area, right? We may hire 50 people and that might be it for the world. We can do a single event on something like textiles and have so many people here shows that we're on the right track. So this is very heartening to me. We hope that you'll enjoy the next couple of days and you'll come out with the same view and opinion. I'd like to thank the organisers. Particularly, I just want to highlight Romy and Peter again. I know they've been highlighted already. Romy's out there doing her outside job. It takes an awful lot to organise something like this. This has been weeks and weeks and weeks in the planning. There's been a lot of complexity, and particularly given the numbers here. So we can't underestimate that. If there are any slight hiccups here and there, expected it's going to happen one way or another, but you'll be okay. But this has been a tremendous effort. I also want to thank Jane. She won't thank herself on stage. You could, if you wanted to, but that would seem odd. There's nothing in Jane's contract that says she has to do these sorts of things. These kinds of events are an act of generosity, really. It's very easy for us to provide the funding with the hub to do this kind of thing. We have that capacity. But it's actually the time it takes to organise and facilitate these kind of things. We want to do it as an act of generosity. We want to do it because we want to create a community. And I think we're doing that. So I thank Jane, and thank the university, and thank you guys again for coming. And with that, I'll pass on to the next session.